there, folks. I'm in the car with Washington Fish and Wildlife specialist, or
wildlife conflict specialist.
Wildlife conflict specialist.
It's a mouthful.
Grant Samsill. We're actually heading out. Grant needs to set a bear trap for a problem bear today, and he was gracious enough to have me come out with him. So what are we doing today, Grant?
Yeah, so we're following up on a bear call I was actually out on last night. Late last night we got a call of a bear that was reportedly holding a lady hostage in her own home up in Northport, Washington. She saw the bear, and the night before, the bear had broke into their little shed where they store all their garbage. Came back the next day, broad daylight. She went to go outside, saw the bear just outside of her door, went to yell and scare it off. The bear wouldn't leave and apparently started hoofing and puffing at her, popping its jaws. And it was like that for probably half an hour. She called her husband, who called the department, and we got several reports and calls last night. I came out and expecting the bear to be on scene. By the time I got there, the bear had already left. We called some local contracted houndmen who brought their hounds out, turned them loose, and we were able to strike on the bear's track, but unfortunately just a little bit too far behind it. Conditions weren't great. Never were able to get the dogs lined out on the bear scent. So we're following up today with a bear trap and hopefully removing, probably not killing, but just relocating this nuisance problem bear. While I was out there last night, talked to several of the locals. This bear sounds like it's been causing a lot of issues for the last couple weeks. A lot of sightings, hitting a lot of homes. It's right on within city limits of Northport, and it might also be injured. So all those things combined, we're pretty confident a trap is needed to address this call. So
I've talked to you on several occasions, and it seems like, I'm not sure if this is abnormal, high level of predator calls that you've had this year, but kind of talk to us about what your year's been like thus far.
Yeah, so the call volume is definitely up. I've been on for going on 3 years now, and each year it definitely seems to ebb and flow. This is our busy time of year with really all predators, mostly wolves and bears is what I'm dealing with this time of year. But just the call volume, it's absolutely nuts how many calls we're receiving, mostly nuisance bears. Bears getting into garbage, orchards, beehives, chicken coops, things of that nature. But every once in a while you'll get a bear call that really has escalated over the course of time, and they become conditioned, and you need to take a little more action and potentially set a trap. So social tolerance is a piece of this, and I would say for a lot of folks in northeast rural Washington, social tolerance for predators is relatively low. So that plays into it, but without a doubt we're getting a lot of calls, and just trying to stay on top of them, prioritize these calls, and we've got staff working 7 days a week just trying to serve the public and address these concerns.
So in this situation, we're looking at putting out a trap and trap this bear and doing some relocation. And now I kind of looked at some studies and information that they've got from like Yellowstone over different periods of time, and they were saying they have mixed results on relocating. What is your thoughts and experience with the relocation process? Do they become problem bears elsewhere or go back there?
They can. In my experience dealing with nuisance problem bears, they have this uncanny ability to not only come back to the same exact area you trapped them in. I mean, there's been several studies where folks will remove a problem bear, transported hundreds of miles away, and within days to weeks that bear's right back where it came from. And then there's another piece of that where bears, specifically boars, are very territorial, and so we don't really have a good grasp of all these different bear territories across the landscape. So you could potentially move a bear from its territory, especially a subadult bear, which is mostly what we deal with, those young teenagers getting into trouble, causing issues, kind of figuring things out for themselves, and then move those bears to an area of protected and defended by a large boar that will eventually kill them. So, you know, it's not a win-win necessarily. It's a last case resort, and in a lot of instances, it really doesn't address the root of the problem long term. It's just kind of a quick fix, and we really try to explore the long-term issue. So most of the time, I would say 9 times out of 10, we're doing is self-help, educating the public, doing a lot of outreach, and then we'll also provide electric fencing, electric netting. I've got some in the back I can show you. And we'll put that around chicken coops and garbage and other attractants, and really trying to help the public become conscious of the fact that, hey, there's bears in the area, you're kind of sharing the landscape with them, and there's a few steps you can take to really improve your situation, prevent conflict.
Makes sense.
Farah.
Hello, Farah.
So when we first got up in the morning yesterday, it was about 8 a.m. I come out the front door, and we have a garbage bin here with a steel door on it, and it was completely broke off in half. And the garbage was all the way upside the mountain. So that was about 8 o'clock in the morning. I go to town, I come home. It's about 3 p.m. I go to open my front door to go water, and he is sitting right there eating a bag of garbage.
Wow, that's
So
30 feet from your door?
Yeah, I actually walked out. I snapped a picture of him because my husband wasn't going to believe how big he was. And he literally didn't even seem dumbfounded by me. He just sat there and ate the garbage, and then I finally yelled, "Get the F out of here!" And he kind of looked at me and just gradually kind of just walked up the hill. Just like nothing was going to faze him at all. And he hasn't been back.
And have you seen this bear in the past, or is this a...
I've never seen a bear here, but there's other people in the community that have seen this bear up on their deck and stuff too.
Oh, okay.
So, and then I had a UPS driver here today that dropped off my package, and I was telling him what happened yesterday, and he said he actually saw that big bear yesterday up on the hill. So,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, so it's
What
been
time?
seen. He didn't tell me. Yeah.
Talking to the people at the gas station, it seems like a lot of people have seen
Yeah.
them and
Right.
had issues. And
Yeah.
when we were up there with the hounds yesterday, everybody was stopping. You guys getting that bear? And they knew about it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because he's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been around for a while. So.
Hey,
And
what,
if you go up here, Ray, you can see all his trails, and he's been coming in for quite some time and hitting all these neighbors. There's garbage all up through here and trails, and he's got a big, huge track on him.
Ah. Nice. Choke cherries, too.
Yep. Yep.
So what's the plan here
So the
with your
plan is
trap?
we'll back this trap in, get it in the shade. You know, with it being this hot, typically don't like it to be in direct sunlight because it's not good for the bear's health, and we don't always get here right away. So we'll back it in, kind of find a good spot. So this is the shed, actually a really sturdy structure that Rob, her husband, had made.
Oh, yeah.
Tore the door right in half. You can see where it had chewed on it to kind of bend it back, and
Oh,
then just
yeah.
broke the jam right in half here.
Kind of reminds me like a Yellowstone where they'll pry open a car door.
Yep.
Oh, that's a good solid door.
Yep.
Oh,
Kind of see on this side.
it's a metal door too.
Drop these jacks down. Then you'll be able to check it in your house.
They'll make a lot of noise once they're caught in there, right?
Yes. Especially a bear his size.
Yeah,
He's not going to be too happy.
no, he's not gonna be happy at all.
I just kind of like to just kind of hair trigger it right on the edge.
Okay.
And then, now that this is nice and stable, that's released. What we'll do, Ray, if you don't mind climbing in and grabbing that orange bag. And then this bait door, or bait bag, will be attached to this trigger mechanism. Yep. And just pull that down.
Voila.
Just like that. Pretty simple, but if he's hungry enough. Awesome. I got caught in the bear trap. Cool.
This is what we are baiting with today. And he's got a little sardines as well. And some donuts. Everything a bear loves.
This in there.
This might be the best use for sardines ever.
Yeah. And then just pull that tight, loop it up through here, and then just tie a good overhead knot up through that hole. Yep.
Yeah, you can smell it already.
Yeah, the sardines in the sun.
In a steel container. This is awesome.
It's nice that this is nice and shaded, so I don't worry about the bear getting too hot.
Mm-hmm.
If you do, you probably have a hose nearby, right?
Yes.
Okay. We'll hose it off. If we do catch it, we'll haul it off. And then just a good healthy dose of some maple syrup, because who doesn't like maple syrup?
Oh, yum.
Sprinkles, icing on the cake, put a little bit of
strawberry syrup.
mm-hmm.
Man, this bear gets spoiled.
Good taste buds. And all this is just an onion sack. Okay, so we'll test it one more time, make sure everything's nice and stable. So we don't want it rocking, and that's kind of why we took so much time to get it nice and secure with these jacks, so they can't set it off from the outside. Again, I'll have you catch me again. Yep. No, not catch you, but just go ahead and set it. Okay.
So it's
Okay.
this guy.
Yeah, open the door. Okay. Yep.
Pull this guy out. Just like a bushcraft trap. Nice and easy.
And fair trigger it. Perfect. Don't throw a little bit of syrup. Okay. And if you want, go ahead and test it. Pulling on that. Go ahead and set it off, Ray.
All right.
Pulling that bag.
And the inside?
Nope, from the outside.
Oh, from the outside. Yep.
All right, I'm clear.
Clear?
Yep. Like that.
There we
Caught bear.
All right. In, go out. Now, as many people know, I've done a lot of wilderness survival TV. I've been on Alone, Called the Wild, and Mud, Sweat, and Beards. This is a whole new use for survival trap mechanisms. I'm gonna have to look into
That's
that.
how this in mobile camera, and so it'll send pictures to Jeff, and then he'll reach out to us. Before I leave, ma'am, I'm gonna give you a list of contacts to call.
What he's doing here is he's setting a trail camera, and this is a trail camera that's set up with a cellular network. So it'll send notifications and images to the wildlife conflict specialists so that they can they'll know if and when this bear is around and trapped, so that they can get to him fairly quickly, so he's not sitting in a steel tube for too long in the summer heat.
And this is called a culvert style trap, just for reference.
Thank you.
Aptly named.
It is made with a culvert. One of my keywords as we look at the human-predator conflict is homeostasis. Finding a balance in an ever-changing landscape scenario situation with lots of different changing variables. One of the things that seems to me that people that are living in areas that have a high predator concentration is not to make yourself a target. So from your experience, what are the top things that people do to make themselves a target, and how would they best prevent themselves from becoming an attractive property for predator activity?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's potentially different for each predator. I mean, we're heading on a bear call. I'll maybe start there with bears. The main thing, bears are driven by their stomachs and their noses. They have an extremely good nose, far superior to that of a dog. And they can smell food sources, sometimes mile, if not miles away. And so if you have a lot of garbage around your house, a lot of attractants, livestock that's not secured, chicken coops, if you feed pets outside, if you've got animal carcasses around, hummingbird feeders, barbecues that haven't been cleaned, all these things can bring bears in. And this time of year, they're just trying to put on the calories. They enter what's called hyperphagia, and they need to consume what's crazy, like 20,000 calories a day to put on those extra pounds in that fat reserve going into winter. When they go into, it's not hibernation, it's actually called torpor. And so they'll go into torpor, and they've got to have a crazy thick fat pad to make it through winter, so they're just consuming tons of calories. And I've got some brochures in the door there which talks about this. Human food sources are so much more attractive than natural food sources to a bear. They're not necessarily doing anything wrong, they're just trying to get caloric intake. And you can kind of see in that brochure exactly what I'm talking about. That might be something fun to
I'll support it. Definitely.
So the caloric intake's much higher. It's very attractive. They can get an easy meal. And the main thing is securing those attractants. You're going to have bears coming in, exploring things. They're naturally curious. They're not, most of the time, black bears by themselves are not aggressive. If they come in for the first time and they're not conditioned or habituated to human food sources or humans, they really pose very little to no threat to humans. It's over time, once they've gotten conditioned to human food sources, to dogs barking, to people, to human scents and smells and sounds, that can escalate to be a public safety concern, where a bear can potentially become aggressive, start breaking into structures and damaging private property and things like that, which is what's happening on this call. We had this bear break into a shed where garbage is being stored, literally broke the door in half, and that's kind of showing some escalation and some conditioning. So the main thing is with bears, it's really about those attractants. Kind of start there. If you have a bear coming in that doesn't want to leave, try securing or removing those attractants. Take your garbage to the dump more often, or put your garbage bins out on pickup day, the morning before instead of the evening. And a big thing too is putting up electric fencing. It works really well around an attractant or a food source, chicken coops and things like that, and making sure those are really secure. Because when a bear gets into a human food source, it's a positive stimulus, a positive reward in that bear's mind. And I tell people it archives in their mind. So the next time they're hungry, they're going to go back to that last place they got an easy meal until they can't. And so we're trying to break that pattern, create negative stimulus. So haze that bear, run it off, scare it off, do whatever you have to do, short of killing it or hurting it. And that can be really effective. And call us when it first starts happening. Don't start putting up with a bear coming in for 2 months straight and then call us, because it's harder. The whole ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. It's really hard to change that bear's behavior after it's been habituated for 2 months straight feeding on your garbage.
And what's the best way to reach out statewide?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways you can call. In this part of the state. We work closely with Stevens County. We receive a lot of calls from Stevens County Dispatch. You can call our regional offices. Our website has all the contact info for our regional offices, or you can call WildCom. There's a 1-800 number on our website, and feel free to call and report, problem bears, nuisance animals, things like that, or if you're having any issues, questions, concerns, we're here to help serve the public.
Nice. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
One of the things I'd like to highlight is that this is not just a wildlife problem. It's just as much a human problem. And in order to find that homeostasis and that ability to coexist, there is always going to be the potential for problems, but we can do things in our own behavior and the way we live our lives in these areas that are cohabitated by these predators in a way that lessens the likelihood of them targeting our properties. And there's a lot of the stuff that Grant just spoke to would be great things to do, like secure your food and your garbage first and foremost. So you hear from Grant that they're swamped with predator calls. He tells me some days as many as 8 or 9 calls in a single day for dealing with problem predators. So we know that we're having more contacts and more problem animals, and that's twofold. One, yes, the populations are high, but because there's less people hunting them and nobody's pursuing them with dogs and everything, what we have is a population that's high and a population that's lost its fear of people. And so, we have not set a healthy boundary. We are not setting healthy boundaries for these wildlife, and so of course we're going to see more and more instances of negative contacts between humans and animals. For most of the people in the state of Washington and Oregon and even in California, most of the people live within 20 miles of I-5 in the city. And those people are essentially who's setting the policy, because that's the majority of the state. But for the rest of the states, anywhere that's more than 20 miles away from I-5, and some areas even closer because they're not really in urban areas, this is an issue, and this is a growing issue and a growing problem. Now, no, the answer is not to start killing all the predators, and because there's not as many hunters and not very many hunters that target apex predators, hunting itself is not going to have a huge impact in the population. Take the example for Idaho, where hunting wolves is legal most of the year, all year round, pretty much in Idaho. But even in the years where they had the highest harvest numbers, the wolf population has grown because there's just not a lot of people hunting them, and that's fine. But what we can do is we can use abatement strategies and train these animals to stay away from human activities. Abatement strategies, like Grant said, putting up electric fences, trimming back the shrubs from the areas that there is potential food for them, whether it be livestock, pets, or human foods or human food waste. And even then, still employing some strategies. I would be like, even if hound hunting isn't going to be legal in the state, for the problem areas that are seeing issues, having some permissions to do some pursuits with dogs, not necessarily harvesting the animal, but reminding the dogs, the animals, that hey, this is not a place that you want to come around. Those type of abatement things will lessen the impact and lessen the number of instances of human-animal negative contacts, and allow us to still not just kill and waste a bunch of animals. In a lot of places, there's just not a good place and way to get those animals in the hands of people in need. So, for them to to give the meat to a food bank or somebody in need. By law, it has to go through a USDA butcher. In this area, the nearest one is more than an hour away. And so to get a game animal to that butcher in a timely manner, and then have the butcher be willing to process that animal, package that animal, then get it picked up and delivered to a food bank or something is a lot of effort for an animal. So, there's definitely something that, I know that there's some people in the area that are working on some type of way to do that, but right now there's a lot of animal lives being wasted as well. I'm on everybody's side. I think that we can find a homeostasis, an equilibrium, a way that we can coexist with animals, and that's what this is all about. Yes, I'm a proponent of hunting, but not to extinction. I'm also a proponent of livestock and farming. I'm also a proponent of having a good, healthy population of apex predators as well. They're a necessary part of this ecosystem. So my goal is to help find that balance, to help find a way to maintain that homeostasis and to set a healthy boundary for the predators.